do our best.
This bill is really pretty minor. Last year, Governor Brewer signed a bill allowing for a virtual versus a physical fence on the border. There was a lot of pressure to put it within a mile of the border. We've had a lot of discussion with CBP this year, and CBP is also putting up some integrated fixed towers right on the border, 36 of them for $147 million over the next 8 years. And they concluded that they would be more supportive if we were not surveilling the exact same area where they have personnel running around, and we would get a lot of false reads about what's happening. And so they asked us to back it up where we could actually see what got through their efforts before it got to a populated area of our state. And so that's one purpose of this amendment, to make sure we have as close as practicable to the border to work with CBP. The second thing is that Senator Steve Smith wanted to get started with some test towers. They're about $100,000 each. And so the money that he raised in 2011, 2012, he wanted to access to get a couple of these things up and working so that we could demonstrate to the state and to the governor that these things would work. And so that's the purpose of the appropriation. There used to be a $10 million appropriation. We took that off. Given our current budget situation, that wasn't going to happen. So that's really the only two things we're trying to accomplish. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley. So you briefly mentioned CVP. Is that a company?
I'm sorry. CBP is Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer. CBP is Customs and Border Patrol.
Oh, God, the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
So, and they're putting up 37 of these towers somewhere.
They are.
And then your proposal is to put up 2, maybe?
We'll do 2, but ultimately we'll need 300.
Okay.
So they'll spend about $147 million on their 30-some towers, and we will spend $30 million on 300 towers.
Okay, so I'm guessing they're, Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, they're different types of towers?
Mr. Chairman, yes, and Representative Meyer, they are.
And so how do the ones that you're proposing to use work?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, the towers that they're putting in are fixed and are very tall with very powerful radar. By definition, they'll only have a line of sight over 30, 40 miles. There's a lot of arroyos and other depressions and mountains between these towers. And what we're proposing for the state would be smaller, more nimble and movable towers that would have better ground radar and camera systems for closer in surveillance. And ours would be able to see more into the dips and valleys. So they're shorter, 25-foot mast versus 100 to 200-foot mast, and more ground radar and less a large area radar system.
So, Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, these would be used to augment the other towers that are being put up? So you'd move them on some schedule or something?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, these would be probably, if we do cooperate with Customs and Border Patrol, these would be back behind them some distance rather than being on the border between their towers. This would be behind them some distance so that we could see if they have been effective in actually monitoring border activity. And we're really looking mainly for the Sinaloa cartel moving illegal drugs into America.
And Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, when you say to see if the 37 tower, I mean, I can't remember how many the federal government was putting up.
Up 37.
37 towers, to see if those are effective, or to see if these towers that we're going to appropriate funds to are effective, when you said to see if they're effective?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, it's intended to be whether or not Customs and Border Patrol were either effective with the towers seeing everything coming across, or if they were not effective in interdiction, we would also see activity at our towers.
And then, Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, you talked about potential cooperation. If you didn't cooperate, who would monitor these towers that you're using to catch the drug smugglers and human traffickers?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, the plan is to be in the cloud with all of the cameras or radar that are actually picking up activity on the 300 towers. We would be in the cloud, and any law enforcement in the state, DPS, county sheriff, CBP, Tohoto O'odham, would be able to access and view any surveillance that we're picking up.
And Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, have they agreed to watch any of that? Or, I mean, will I be watching at night when I'm not in appropriations? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, every law enforcement sheriff in the counties, DPS, and Customs and Border Patrol that have been in any of our meetings, and I've had a number of these, including the Tohoto O'odham Police Department, they all are anxious to have additional surveillance assets to be a force multiplier for what they're doing currently.
And Mr. Chair, Senator Worsley, have the towers that this bill would appropriate funds for been used anywhere else and been shown to be effective in that in the application they were used in?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, SRP just acquired the same technology for their substations and power plants. APS is currently considering this within the state. And then Special Forces on the DMZ and also in Libya are using this technology. Our Special Forces are using this very effectively in the battlefront.
And Mr. Chair and Senator Worsley, so your goal then, by the two initial ones, show that they're effective, and then by how many, with funds that are not appropriated from this fund, but the funds from this fund come from donations. Is that not correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Representative Meyer, there's currently only $264,000 in this fund that came from donations. That would probably accommodate 2 or 3 towers of 300. Once this pilot has proven effective, we would see coming back to the state and also working with federal government resources and grants to fund the balance of the mobile towers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Worsley.